All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're tackling something I know so many of you have been asking for, especially all the ambitious young female entrepreneurs tuning in. We are talking about how to build incredible wealth and a multi-million-dollar business, but doing it while remaining completely authentic, soft, and true to your feminine strengths. We're going to break down the exact strategies, the inevitable failures, and the massive psychological shifts you need to get there. Let's get started. We are constantly fed this idea that success means you have to be loud, arrogant, and obsessed with this toxic hustle culture. The internet is absolutely flooded with images of entrepreneurs just shouting at cameras and flexing luxury cars. But the incredible journey of a 22-year-old self-made millionaire named Ceodorien proves that's just not true. You absolutely do not have to change who you fundamentally are to achieve massive financial success.
Actually, her journey didn't start with some unshakable built-in confidence. Growing up in a pretty high-achieving, somewhat controlling middle-class family, she is the shy, quiet girl in class. She even failed almost every subject one year just because of the immense pressure. But instead of letting that break her, she reframed her insecurity into a literal superpower. That quiet fear of failure, it drove her to learn, to work relentlessly, and to ultimately seek out a life of total financial freedom, rather than settling for the traditional, routine path everyone else expected of her.
And just look at this timeline. It's a rapid ascent, right? From discovering the whole concept of online business at 16 with her friend Samuel, to hitting major revenue milestones, surviving some pretty devastating losses, and then becoming a millionaire by 22. This perfectly mirrors a concept we've pulled from entrepreneur Ayman Gadzi. To be a king, or in this case, a queen, you first have to learn to be a pawn. You really do have to pay your dues, start with zero resources, and survive the valleys.
Section 2. Choosing your wealth vehicle, from pawn to king.
Listen, making your first $10,000 or $100,000 isn't about luck. It's a highly learnable skill. First, you got to shift your mindset to just embrace learning on the fly. Second, you build repeatable processes by mastering a craft. Maybe that's a high-margin digital service like copywriting or video editing, or maybe it's low-barrier e-commerce. And finally, you leverage and scale. Once you find the thing that works, you optimize the whole shebang.
So for her specific vehicle, Ceodorien chose dropshipping. Now I know dropshipping gets a lot of mixed reviews online, but as our sources highlight, it is a fantastic training ground for young entrepreneurs. It requires super low startup capital, and it absolutely forces you to learn fundamental digital marketing, pricing, and supply chain skills. Yes, it for sure has clear challenges with supplier reliability and insane competition, but as a stepping stone, it's an incredible teacher.
For 6 straight months, she worked in complete secret. She'd pack her backpack, tell her parents she was heading off to university, but actually, she went straight to a cafe to build her Shopify store. She and her partner burned through their savings, they failed repeatedly, they even got scammed. But then, they found their first winner. A totally simple dog harness. That one single product scaled her business from a $100 day to a mind-blowing $1,000 revenue day, and she was only 18 years old.
Section 3. The reality of failure. Surviving the valleys. $30,000. Just let that number sink in. After crushing it with dropshipping, Ceodorien tried to launch her dream skincare line. She went all in, ordering 10,000 units, hiring designers, the works. But right before the launch, she realized a terrifying truth. Her products completely lacked a unique market fit. They were basically just basic cleansers and serums trying to compete against massive, trusted brands. So she faced a huge choice: launch anyway out of ego, or eat the $30,000 loss. She bravely chose the latter and completely canceled the project. And this perfectly tees up a core concept from the book, The Psychology of Money. Survival is the ultimate word of success. The market will always test you. Avoiding total wipeouts and simply surviving your failures is what eventually allows you to stay in the game long enough to actually see those compounding returns. If she had let that failure destroy her confidence, her entire story would have ended right there at age 20. But she didn't quit. Instead of throwing in the towel after that devastating loss, she leaned into these psychological principles. She realized she needed a much larger margin of safety. She separated her ego from her business, meaning she was willing to cancel a bad loss rather than force it just to save face. She accepted the failure, went right back to her reliable dropshipping system, and relentlessly built a $1 million cash cushion before ever attempting to build a new brand again.
Section 4. Soft, strong, and successful. The feminine advantage.
Look, you absolutely do not need to adopt some arrogant, hypermasculine persona to win. Ceodorien looked at all those loud, fake internet entrepreneurs and basically decided to do the exact opposite. Authentic entrepreneurship is all about quiet confidence. It's about being highly disciplined, logical, and direct, but also remaining kind. It's about staying structured, eating clean, going to the gym, and maintaining your softness. You can be ruthlessly effective in business without losing your humanity.
And wow, the results literally speak for themselves. By staying true to her structured, healthy, and authentic routines, Ceodorien eventually launched a second e-commerce brand that generated a staggering $7 million in revenue by the time she was only 24. She moved to Portugal, surrounded herself with like-minded friends, and built this massive empire strictly on her own terms.
I really want you to absorb this quote. Never think that being feminine makes you weaker in business. It gives you a different kind of power. This is absolutely crucial. It proves that you can remain gentle, authentic, and grounded while simultaneously executing a massive million-dollar logistical and marketing strategy. Empathy, structure, and calm execution, those are incredible business assets.
Section 5. Keeping your wealth. The psychology of money. Because as wealth psychology teaches us, true wealth is definitely not that flashy supercar or the designer bags people buy just to flex on Instagram. Wealth is the financial power that you do not see. It's the unspent assets. It's that gap between your ego and your income. Think about it. If you make $1 million but spend $1 million trying to look rich, you are entirely broke. True wealth is hidden savings. And this chart really hits the nail on the head. The data shows us a deep psychological truth. Using money to buy yourself autonomy and time gives you a far greater return on happiness than purchasing luxury goods ever will. Our sources highlight entrepreneur Iman Gadzhi, who bought massive watch collections and supercars early on, only to realize they didn't actually change his baseline happiness. The absolute highest form of wealth is waking up every single morning knowing you have total independence to do whatever you want with your time.
So, to protect your peace and avoid those early success traps, you've got to have rules. Keep your circle small and tight, but keep your professional influence large. When you make money, push it away from yourself immediately. Invest it early so it's protected from your own ego and lifestyle creep. Focus on a really high savings rate over just a high income, and then step back and let those assets compound without any interruption. If you're a young woman listening to this explainer and you've ever felt, too quiet, too average, or just too shy to be an entrepreneur, let this sink in. Confidence isn't something you're just magically born with. It's built by surviving failures. Your journey doesn't start with unwavering confidence. It simply starts with a single act of courage to try. So, as we wrap up and you take these lessons back to your own life, I want to leave you with this final question. How will you use your authentic, quiet power to create the freedom you actually deserve? What empire will you build with your quiet courage today?